Mike's over there. He's our electronics guru. All right, I'll call our subcommittee to order. And we actually only have one hearing today. We all are on the Appropriations Committee, of course, and had a great SEC Square presentation. But we're going to change the name to either Sunbelt Square or SWAC Square, because I'm tired of SEC getting all the glory. So anyway, yours. Yeah. All right. So we have ITS to talk to us today about their budget. So
thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me say thank you for confirming me last year, because I consider it a true privilege to be here today representing this department. With me today is Michelle Blocker. She's our Chief Administrative Officer. Also have Ms. Nita Kaler with us today too. As you know, ITS serves as the central agency for planning, deployment, operation of IT resources across the enterprise and state government. So it's not just state agencies and universities, which are directly under our purview, but also all levels of government. So community colleges, local government in cities and counties, schools, libraries, we support through direct IT staff or contracts, all those levels of government. If you don't mind, for the benefit of the committee, I'd like to give you just a high-level overview of our budget. Number one, I'm going to be talking from this handout primarily, and there's an infographic about the IT spend in state government, and I want to make sure that everybody knows. I know everybody knows how important IT is to complete the mission of state government in all of our lives, but we kind of track spending from Magic, and the state of Mississippi spends in last year, FY21, about $230 million on IT, and that does not include salaries. If you add salaries to that, we don't have the exact number, but we have pins and including all those that start, another 75 million or so. So over $300 million in our state budget for IT spend.
Right. So let me just be clear. It's not ITS department, it's statewide spending.
And I've got a lot to share today. I'm going to try to go fast, but stop me along the way as we go. So our model stemmed from working through Senate Bill 2779. It's a dual fund model. We have two funds, what we call a hub fund or our general fund, and SPOKE, which is our special fund. That was a solution to cover our base costs and also provide a central and efficient way to share IT services across agencies and pass those costs along to agencies as they use them to leverage primarily two things: the federal funding that exists in the budgets of the agencies that we support, and then the consolidated buying power. The more we buy together, then there's an inverse relationship between unit price and unit volume. The more we buy together, the lower the price goes. Traditionally, our budget programs have been very organizational in nature, and we've tried over the last year or so with our analyst, Leanne, and others to align our budget programs with our funding model to try to make it easier for everyone to understand what we do. So I'm going to go through those. Our general fund, our hub budget, provides technical operations, and that is direct support by ITS staff. We are on the floor pressing the buttons, and it also funds service provisioning for some of our core services, but also emerging technologies that our agencies are telling us this is what's coming down the road from a technology perspective that we need access to complete our mission. So we use our hub budget for all those things. Some of the examples is our mainframe environment. So in our mainframe environment is primarily for the Department of Finance and Administration. Their legacy SPAR system, you probably heard that, HR and payroll, we support that with our hub budget. In addition to that is Magic. We strongly support the Magic system, our finance and grants program through the ERP. In addition to that is our state data center facility. So the investment that you guys made 10 to 15 years ago, and some of the things that run in that data center the Department of Revenue's income tax system that runs on the second floor in our co-location area of our data center. There are about 40 entities that are in that area across government. Our core data and voice enterprise network, so that provides data and voice communications around the Capitol complex. Our IT procurement function, which results in us signing about 400 contracts every year on behalf of state government for IT purchases. And then our core network perimeter security. So that is designed to help our agencies protect the data that they process during their transactions on a daily basis. So all that happens within the hub budget. That's what we spend our general funds on. Our spoke budget, our special fund, that's spending authority only. Some of the things that are included in that spend, and those are for IT managed services, is our cloud environment. So we have both private and public cloud. Examples of our private cloud is the driver's license system. So the driver's license system that runs for the Department of Public Safety, that's where it runs in our Mississippi private cloud. Public cloud, we have partnered with Department of Employment Security. So we work with them and save them hundreds of thousands of dollars on the hosting for the unemployment system. So all those things are run through our managed services area, which is our special fund. Our statute dictates that those costs can only be passed through with no markup, so we're passing that along. And again, it is a consumption-based model. So if they have a need for additional compute resources that's temporary, that increase consumption, we provide that capacity to them, and they only pay for what they use. When that decreases, their bill goes back down. So it's very fluid. So at the top of your handout is our request. It's $26.2 million for our general fund. Definitely want to bring to your attention that that is 7% lower than our FY22 appropriation. We didn't take that very lightly, but over the past few years, we took very proactive measures to reduce software, hardware, and maintenance costs for a reduced workload in our mainframe area, in addition to moving from our open systems to our private cloud. So we saw savings there. And this request still does maintain adequate funding to support the state agencies' missions that we help support. But we just felt a fiduciary responsibility as we saw those savings to pass those back to you, to return to the general fund. And then ultimately, in my opinion, that goes back to the taxpayer. So in addition to the $26.2 million for the general fund is our $25 million special fund request that is level with our FY22 appropriation. That again is spending authority only. So that's kind of the request. We also have a provision for a transfer authority that's really a cash management help to us when we go through our billing cycle. We respectfully request that remain in our bill. So next on the list is some of the critical initiatives that we're gonna look forward to working on in FY23. And I'll just again hit the highlights and be glad to take questions as we go. Cybersecurity, our goal continues to be to enhance the cybersecurity posture. We have a layered approach, so we put protections down in layers to protect the data of the state of Mississippi in our network perimeter defense. And we have some areas that we think we can add to the existing layers that's going to help, primarily web-facing to protect us from malicious websites. Next is cloud computing. So we have migrated our existing, again, to our Mississippi private cloud from our open systems environment. What we want to do is provide a full suite of cloud tools in a hybrid ecosystem, which means a combination of both private and public, so that when agencies have a need in the cloud, we have tools available for them to accomplish their mission. On procurement, we definitely know that new technology purchases are becoming harder and harder to procure using traditional methods, and that we need to innovate and provide agility in procurement while preserving the integrity of the process. And we plan to modernize some of our internal tools to do that, to build in features like workflow document change management, electronic signature and approvals. We've built a baseline of metrics, and I just want to tell you, I'm going to be very disappointed in myself and the team if we don't come back to you a year from now and say we've improved in this area. That's a strong goal of mine for the next fiscal year. Our telecom and data network, we're at the end stages of completing a fiber-based network across government. Again, this really hits all those levels of government that I mentioned earlier, from locals to schools to libraries to state agencies, universities. And let me tell you what we're going to get at the end of this migration is each of these entities that are able to use this contract are going to have a win-win business decision to make. So they're going to have a decision to do one of two things. They're going to be able to stay at their level of usage that they're at. So if everything's working well for them and they have all the capacity that they need, their bill is going to go down substantially. Or they're going to be able to increase their speed, increase their bandwidth, increase their capacity, and pay about the same as they're paying today. So I think that's a great thing for all of those entities. Infrastructure and facilities, you guys have invested in our state data center. There's a handout in there with some of the details about that facility. We want to continue to build on that investment. We have created a business resiliency plan. We've got redundancy options for the agencies. We've got recovery plans in case there is something that happens here in Jackson. We have leveraged a co-processing center in Starkville to be able to do that. And what we're looking to do is improve the redundancy in that location next year. So that's kind of the initiatives. And then finally, personnel. We have definitely reviewed the effects of the SEC initiative and believe that in our request that we submitted to you in August, that we have the adequate funding and positions in the salaries category. What we would like to request is to maintain our ability to staff at the 132 position or headcount level, just as we have in FY22. I definitely want to say to you and to the State Personnel Board how much I commend your support in beginning to fund what the State Personnel Board has created, because I believe it's the first step in moving toward a more competitive environment for state government to be able to compete in hiring great talent. I really do. The work that's gone into the revisions of the classification compensation, if we want to give our taxpayers great government, which I definitely do, we've got to have great organizations in state government. And, you know, at ITS, we own a lot of assets. There's a lot of technology and computers, but in my opinion, our greatest asset is our people. And so to give great service, I think we've got to have great people. And just like every other business, I'm sure you've had it in your own lives, we're struggling a little bit. I mean, we're struggling to hire, to recruit and retain. Our turnover ratio has doubled in the last 2 years. It was about 10% in 2020, and we're looking at about 20% this year. We plan to fully utilize our flexibility that's offered in SEC squared, but I'm gonna ask you to give us 1 year to baseline our hiring, with the opportunity to use the SEC policy that's put in place so that we can hopefully hire some of those vacancies that we've lost over time. I think that we have a much better possibility of being successful in doing that using this new policy. So again, just a quick rundown, 7% self-imposed reduction in our general fund to 26.2 million. Level spending in our special fund of 25 million. Maintain our small transfer authority and maintain the request of funding for salaries and positions while we work through filling those vacancies.
Questions? Yes, I'd like to start with a few.
Yes, sir.
You talked about temporary service for an agency that you're able to supply them that ability, and you bill them for that during this time that they need it only. So we have that enough space or whatever we need to take care of requests like that at no additional cost to the agency, ITS. And so I'm sure that's right sized. Y'all got some model to decide if we've got too much or too little.
So, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we've done is we realize that's what you just described is a very difficult thing to achieve. So we've partnered with a private company where their equipment in that capacity lives in our data center, but they are responsible for providing that capacity. They have the risk of providing that capacity adequately and charging us the rates that are described in the contract on a usage base only. So they take the risk and we pay basically by the drink, if you will, for just what we use.
And on your salary request, I remember last year when we talked, of course, y'all were losing people left and right because of salary. You feel like the SEC squared system will take you out of that problem?
I think it's the first step. I think there's flexibility here to pay people into the range so that we can be more competitive with the private sector. That, in addition to the benefits already provided to state government employees, which I think are phenomenal, is going to make us competitive.
So the salaries that we're requesting will fit into that model.
And it's not just attracting new talent. One of the things that we're looking to do is to retain the current talent. We've got great people at ITS and we want to keep them. So we're going to be able to reward those star performers using this initiative.
Questions from the committee? Senator Blackwell.
Sure. So as I talked about the two funds, both of those funds contain the majority of those costs are contractual services. So when the statewide network contract that I talked about that we're going to provide across all levels of government, and we're going to pass those costs through to the using agencies, those are contractual services. On procurement, sure. An area I've already hit on proactively with you. That's an area that we definitely want to improve on. That range is wide. So for small projects, it could be 2 weeks. Very large, complex procurement projects, it can be a year or more. What I'll say to you is we have plans to implement revisions to our regulations that again create agility within the program and also improve our internal tools. But ITS is only one component of that process. So we have the agencies themselves have to make business decisions, come up with their business rules they want to achieve with that procurement. We also have the vendor community at the end of the process, and it is honestly becoming harder and harder to negotiate contracts, IT contracts with the vendor community. And then sometimes we have a fourth leg, which is the oversight of the federal government. So if an agency has a federal cognizant agency, a lot of times those projects have to go to them for review before they will fund it. So ITS is a part and a strong part. And I take full responsibility for our part of that process, but there are parts of it that are outside of our control. So there's state law that cannot be negotiated, and private vendors sometimes do not see that the industry itself as something that they want to negotiate. And so we have to work through that process. We have an assigned attorney general at our office. It's pretty much full-time job is to help us accomplish that.
Mr. Joe, you have a question? Absolutely.
Does. And we work through it. It is a negotiation process, obviously. There are some things that we cannot and will not negotiate that are state law, but there are some places where we can. We want to come to a win-win solution. It's definitely more difficult recently. We have a subscription to Gartner, which is intellectual property focusing on IT. And we talk with them about trends in the marketplace. And I have to address this directly with them and say, what's going on in the industry so that we understand it. Is it just Mississippi? And they tell me no. And I said, here are some of the items that are on the table from a vendor's perspective that they are trying to negotiate. Gartner responded with, yes, that is the trend in the industry, but we would not concede to say that it's best practice. So we stand our ground when we have to. So, I don't think there may have been one. I don't think that we have come to a place where a vendor has withdrawn their opportunity to provide the service. We have eventually negotiated. It is. It's a much longer, and I guess this goes back to the original question, is how long does that process take? This is part of that process.
I asked one question in relation to this. So I think Apple had something very similar where they came to the state and said, for school boards that were wanting to purchase Apple products, they came in and said, this is our business model. This is what you have to do. In the school districts or the procurement side said, no, you have to provide this for schedule or a term of life or all these other add-ons to a contract. And Apple said, nope, that's not how we do business. We don't do this anywhere in the country. We're out. And push back. Is that something similar that you're seeing? They say this is our business model and we're out.
That's
And
exactly.
Mr. Chairman, on their behalf, I'm gonna sit down with you at some point and talk about the liability side, because they've got some issues at ITS with that as well, and I need your assistance with that.
Sir Williams, any questions?
Just a couple quick questions. One on infrastructure. You talked about the fiber build out with the counties and things. Do you know where that stands on completion? We had ARPA hearings about 6 weeks ago, and the health departments told us that they were about 50% built out on fiber connection. I think that's through the contract with C-Spire, right?
It is. Right now, there was a February 6th deadline for completion. Our board has approved an extension of that to the end of February. And we're waiting to see if the completion date will be met, but within the next several months, it will be complete.
Okay. And that you got 2 data centers. The Starkville data center is at the C-Spire building.
It is.
So it's whether their capacity is leased or rented from them.
Co-processing agreement with C-Spire.
Okay. We've got a lot of large legacy systems throughout the state that are end of life, like a decade ago. Assuming y'all are aware of those and working with them as they look at, like, education has one, I think DHS has one. These are tens of millions of dollars to replace. Assuming you guys are in that group. We
do. So we receive strategic plans from agencies on an annual basis, and those are included in those plans. One of the challenges is really when the funding will come. So agencies have that need, and then they become part of the strategic plan that we're working with them on, but they can't move forward until the funding comes through. And so, yes, once that happens, and then we become part of the procurement process.
Sure. Y'all are involved. That was really
Yes, sir.
they're not siloed and try to do it on their own, which brings me to the last question. I know we're out of town. Said appropriation meetings this year, a lot of the directors have ITS dollars that they're not really sure what they are when they've been given those. Is a lot of that at y'all's direction of recommendations? Like that $750,000 pass for cybersecurity in one of the appropriations meetings. The director wasn't sure. He defaulted to his people, and I assume that y'all been in conversation most likely or not.
Those specific to ITS costs or
Yes, these are ITs. Is there IT line item? I don't know. I'm probably a little more vague, and I need to be with that. It's just that, are we collaborative in that, trying to get the economies of scale that you referenced? Or are we kind of doing this on our own? The more collaborative we are, I think the smarter we are going forward.
I think the answer to your question is there is both. So agencies do use our shared services, and then they do have the ability to make those business decisions because they have their own budget and make those IT decisions at the agency level without ITS's involvement.
Great. Thank you. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you for the job you do. I understand it's a lot.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have an education meeting coming up too, and I'm on that committee. There's going to be a pretty interesting vote. So I know Susan Lano has questions. Susan Williams, if you will, take chair for the rest of the meeting.
I will be glad to do that.
Unfortunately, I got to do the same thing.
I have a meeting as well. College and University College. Okay. But
All that I wanted to do, Mr. Chairman, is I know that's been very important for you and for myself to try to streamline the procurement process. I think even Senator Blackwell introduced a bill for that. As their advisor, I'm pledged to you that we're moving forward. We're trying to streamline this, and we've got to work on the EPL especially on cybersecurity side, to improve that the ability for agencies to go out and purchase stuff off the shelf or off that list immediately without delay. So I just wanted to let you know that we're going to work on that as well.
So with that, get to end kind of quickly and quietly. We thank you for being here, and we certainly take your request under advisement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. God bless.